This conference will now be recorded.
We're good now? Okay. Good evening again. I am Steve Knight, Chair of the Rhome Planning and Zoning Commission. It is 6 p.m. on Monday, February 12th, 2024. I will call this meeting to order. I'll call a roll to establish our quorum. Steve Knight, myself here. Roland Kuhlman.
Here.
Kathy Carnegie.
Here.
And Joseph Hernandez.
Here.
And we were expecting Christine Aaron. She may be late or we may not see her. We don't know. We do have a quorum. I would like to welcome our new member, Joe Hernandez, his first meeting with us. And with that, the commission is not permitted to take action on or discuss any presentations made to the commission at this time concerning an item not listed on the agenda. The commission will hear comments on specific agenda items during this designated time. If you are attending the meeting in person, sign-up forms will be available at the meeting to fill out and submit prior to the meeting start time. Do we have any?
No, sir.
No. Okay, we'll move on to our public hearing. Item 1, Rhome Planning and Zoning Commission is to conduct a public hearing to consider a replat and variance request, one tract being legally described as tract acres A-634 MEP and PRR 1.0270 acres, and lot 1-6 through 6, block 23, original town Rhome, also described as located at 250 BC Rhome Avenue, Rhome, Texas 76078. It is 6:02. We will open our public hearing. Do we have any comments?
None more submitted on paper.
None submitted. Do we have any comments from the audience?
I do believe we have representatives from the business that are here.
Okay, we can do that now or when we go into our part of the, either way. But we have no public comments at this time in the public hearing. Okay, then I think we'll close the public hearing at 6:00. I'm going to call it 6:03 p.m. and move on to our regular agenda, new business. Item 2, discussion and any necessary action regarding replat, 1 acre tract being legally described as acres A634 MEP and PRR, 1.0270 acres, and lot 1 through 6, block 23, original town Rhome, also described as located at 250 BC Rhome Avenue, Rhome, Texas 76078. I'll turn this to our city administrator.
Thank you.
Amanda again.
Thank you, sir. We do have this item before you this evening. You will notice in your packet that you have, we have received a letter from Kimley Horn, our engineering firm, who has been working on this with the potential buyers and developers of this site for a couple of months now. I believe that the developers are here to gain some feedback on items 1 through 7 in the engineering letter, because there are a couple of variances that would need to be recommended to council once this is in possession of the developers, because I don't believe you've closed on the property yet. Is that correct? So once that is done, they're just trying to make sure that they have all their T's crossed and their I's dotted so that they can move forward with closing. There are some landscape plans. There are some other site layout plans. There is an overview of the blocks as it relates to BC Rhome from the Wise County Appraisal District. There is also a checklist on the zoning from Chapter 14 showing what's complete and what is not applicable. So I would, at this point, turn it over to the developers to answer any questions that you have and provide you with some additional information.
Okay.
Gentlemen, would you, one of you like to take to the mic?
Thank you. My name is Tom Knox. I'm one of the 3 developers. I didn't know who was I guess that's what we're doing. So one of the 3 potential business owners. So we're happy to answer any questions about
Might just be a good idea to run down 1 through 7. Do you have a copy of those that you are aware of, or and just kind of give us a little background on each one so we kind of know what we're dealing with there?
Yes. Okay. The very first one is loading areas. I guess you're all familiar with the building here. So the building already exists. So a couple of these kind of it's, so grandfathering what's already there. So the building is itself is 200 feet wide and 90 feet deep. But on the west end of the building, there's kind of an open area that's open to the north and south. So that would be, we propose that would be our loading, unloading area. So that would be number one. So it would be somewhat there visible.
So one of the things, if I could interrupt you for just a moment, sir, when we talk to these future business owners in Rome from the standpoint of bringing this to our community, they'd like to use as much of the existing structure as possible without having to do a tremendous amount of rework of that building. I believe the bones of it are pretty good. They would, of course, update it to make it look like an Ace Hardware, and it would be very, very nice from what we have seen. But I'm just trying to set the stage for why some of these questions are coming to you, is rather than tear it down and start all over, which would not be financially feasible for this type of a business, they'd like to try and use as much of the structure as it exists.
Is there such a thing as some of these are grandfathered in or being in an existing building?
No,
Is it
they're not
changing?
grandfathered in, which is why they're listed here. But what he's saying is, at least I think, and interrupt me if I'm incorrect, is they're trying to use some of the openings that exist without having to change some of the interior dynamics of the uprights and the other things for that building.
Okay, so our governing ordinances maybe don't distinguish between new and existing buildings when it comes to.
Generally, if you're changing X percentage of the building, then it may shift you into the current laws. So that's why you see some of these things here. For instance, one of the things they're going to talk about, I believe, is the fact that our current zoning requires all concrete paving for parking spaces. And what we've talked to them about is a variance to phase that in. Let the business get open, let it start generating some revenue for the business owners, and then allow them as time goes on to phase that into and concrete out as they go. But I would like to give him some time to kind of respond to that.
Yeah. So just to give you our perspective, Rome is what we would consider a green market for Ace Hardware. This is not something that Ace Hardware Corporation is looking to come to. Ace Hardware is a cooperative, meaning that the individual store owners own Ace Hardware. So we're not franchisees, but it's close to that, right? So the corporation was not looking to come here. Their people are not out here, but we were made aware of the building and the availability of the building. Obviously, the growth is coming. So what we're trying to do is to get into a market when we can afford to get into it. And because once, 15 years from now, hardware store probably couldn't make it here because it costs too much to come in. So we're trying to get in when we can afford to get into the market, knowing that our sales will be somewhat less than what they might be in some other market, that they will build over time. So that's kind of what she's addressing there. So we're going to try to use as much of the existing building as possible and make it look nice, but kind of have an older boutique, whatever. Did they end up with the architects?
I don't see that in the packet per se. Staff have reviewed that.
So it's
That's all right.
so it's we're going to put an awning in the front. About half of the building maybe would be a combination of rock and hardy siding that stain kind of look like wood, paint stain to look like wood. So we'll use metal and rock, just a concrete board to make it look like a really nice building. So with the loading area, if we were to have to follow the ordinance to the T, as I understand it, we'd probably have to tear down part of the building or something to make it look like unloaded on the side or the back. It's not real feasible in this situation as far as the loading goes.
Real quickly, so that end of the building you're talking about for that loading and unloading is away from the 287 and more towards our main street. That end of the building, is it?
It's on I call it
The west end. So it is closest to the 287. Okay. That I'm just trying to get my orientation right.
So that's the loading area. The parking that she was referring to, we will propose to start out with concrete parking and some areas, but then as the business grows, we'll concrete the rest of it. And that's, yeah, allowing it to kind of grow into the space.
Let me speak to number 3, if I could jump in.
Absolutely.
So just to give you some history, Mr. Dominguez and I have met with these individuals about this particular business, and one of the things that's a challenge for this site is it's currently on septic. This is along BC Rome is where some of our residential and that business has its own private septic. It's not hooked up to our sanitary sewer system. And unfortunately, for them to hook up, it's going to require a TxDOT variance or a TxDOT approval for them to dig under BC Rome, because that is not a city street. From what I've understood and my reach out to folks within TxDOT is it can take as much as a year for them to get that response from them. And that's really not business friendly or conducive to, since the Ace Hardware is not going to be a In-N-Out burger or something that's going to have a very, very heavy use of the restroom. Our proposal is to allow them to use the current septic that's there as long as it will handle the capacity, and give them a 2 to 3 year variance to get hooked up to our sewer system so that they can go through all the machinations that TxDOT is going to require, because the bore under the road it'll take a while. It'll also be a little bit expensive. Not to mention just going through all the steps that TxDOT's going to need. So I wanted to let you know that I had talked to Mr. Dominguez, our Public Works Director, about that, and he was in agreement.
And the septic system works for them. I mean, it's.
I'm sure they'll have to have it inspected as they go along and make sure, but it's currently functioning.
Right. I just didn't want to make sure they weren't spending a whole lot of extra money on front.
We will have to put some money. We haven't even looked at it yet. It needs, I think it's been so it's so the parking we kind of talked about, that we start with the pave, and also the number of spaces. I guess that's number 2 as well. We kind of know what we feel like hardware stores need. It's a little bit less than that. It's not much, but it's what we think is needed for our business.
Excuse me, Mr. Knox.
Yes, sir.
So for the parking, is the drainage, since they're on septic, is the water runoff, is there going to be drainage, or is it just going to go out to BC Rome?
No, it will not go to BC Rome. Wait, it's going very well. There are drainage. Our engineer has been working with your engineer, and there are drainage plans that have been submitted. So that's, I haven't looked at that yet. Sure. This is Jeremy. And I distributed it to the others. Yeah, so the way that the proposed drainage will work in the parking lot, that it will, there we go.
So in your packet, if you will look on page, I don't know that it has a particular page number, but it's a site plan checklist. It talks about that drainage has been submitted and been through our engineering process and it's complete. So from that angle, for our new commission members, that gives you an understanding that Kimley Horn has looked at it and they have approved, because they don't have any objections within their cover letter. So they have addressed those for us and have kind of taken care of that already.
And that's through the whole build out of parking spaces of the 60 some number.
Yes, we'll go ahead and do all the drainage. Any other questions about
Right now, give us just a second here. We've got our final member here. Good evening. We're just getting good and started, so fine. Glad to see you here this evening.
I
Go ahead, sir.
did happen to notice that the aggregate surface lot, there's like several different types. Are you getting the type that's going to be more better suited for drainage, or have you gone that far yet on it?
As far as the aggregate part
Yeah,
of the parking,
yeah.
well, that would not be used much probably in the beginning. There's a lot of aggregate parking there. So it could be just shape. Hot dressing. We have
Yeah, I had to look it up to see. It's like multiple different kinds, so I just wanted to get a better understanding. Thank you.
The number 6 on there is a minimum building setback of 15 feet. That's another place where the existing building is right up against the property line on that west end. So no way without tearing the building, part of the building down, we have that setback.
And that would kind of be your grandfathered issue. When the zoning requirements are put in place, this building already existed. So because it is two different plats that will be coming together and it was owned as two different plats, that was constructed prior to this 15-foot setback, very likely. I do think that given the nature of what they're designing and what they're hoping to bring, these variances that they're requesting will help this look like it's been in Rome for a long time, instead of that it's a brand new build, which is something that we would want to see in Old Town Rome. You don't want to see a brand new shiny building coming in that is completely out of character with what we're trying to keep within Old Town. So just to give you a little bit of perspective on that particular issue.
And this shouldn't have any kind of big impact on the adjoining property. If that
I was going to say the adjoining property there is actually called East Street. So it's a street that is owned by the city of Rome, but it only services, I guess, property back there with the railroad or something back there. It's the only one, I guess, that uses that. So it's up against that on that side. The other end of the building, which actually goes to number 7 here about landscape, the other end of the property, I should say, on that end of the property is the great refractory hearing that was talked about a moment ago, and it's full of brush, and it's probably 10 feet from the ground. And so this asking for not needing a landscape buffer there, you can't see from our property, the other property. This big ditch and all the roads and
And you do have a lot of landscaping and trees and stuff for the exposed part to BC Rome, I see. So, into the mic if you could.
Yeah, pretty much everywhere else on the site that was unaffected by existing trees.
Great. Item 6 got skipped.
oh yes, power lines. Just one little sentence went by. So yeah, we are requesting, that you do not allow power line signs, but something for us to get notice, and what we're requesting is just a 20-foot tall, which is not, when you look at the one outside here, it's a baby compared to that one, but a 20-foot tall. The building itself is probably 25 or 26 feet tall, so it's not as tall. Request that so that we can get notice from the people that are going to be in the busy place already, so that people would notice us from this part of it.
And that would be a lit sign also. 24/7, 24, I mean, all night. Okay. Business hours. And what does our ordinance specifically say?
The ordinance itself for Old Town Rome is a little bit vague. There's your general zoning and then there's an overlay for Old Town. I believe the last time I read that, Old Town only allowed for monument signs, which are down at the road level. That's not going to be really conducive for a retail establishment, and certainly not in that area. It would be my recommendation, as long as the sign does not exceed the height of the building, and certainly if they're willing to turn it off in the evening, that variance be granted.
Yeah, my only thoughts there are is it is a little different kind of a deal when you're on the highway, but at the same time, if you are a business, you do want your to draw attention on where to turn to get to you. So yeah, that's I can understand.
I explained all of those.
Any other commissioners here have questions, or now's the time to ask them?
So the sign, is it going to be a digital or is it going to be static? Static.
I presume there's going to be parking lot tower lights too for lighting the parking lot.
We have lighting parking lot, wall packs that are in front of the building. So especially in the beginning stage, most of the parking will be right in front of the building. That would be fine for that. We have some lighting.
Do you know if any of that lighting, and this is totally off subject somewhat, but a lot of cities are working towards getting the kind of lighting that goes down rather than lighting up the sky and all. I'm just curious if that's a consideration monetary wise when you go to putting in these.
They're generally what they're called Cobra head, and so it does generally shield. It just depends on how wide of a shield that we're looking at. I worked for my last community was a dark sky community in all but name, and we did not allow any uplighting, and that's something that at some point I will be bringing to P&Z a alteration to our sign ordinance as well as uplighting, because we need to get a handle on that so that we do not have any more signs like QT and Loves in Rome.
I just understand it that for the most part, it doesn't run money up too much when people are putting necessary lighting. It's just the way it's built to where it's aimed rather than lighting up everybody. And it is something a lot of cities are going to. So I was just asking questions.
We're excited about coming to Rome and starting this year. We have 5 other stores. Denton, Justin, we're in Oklahoma. So we're not, it's not our first one. And so we're going to put in, you'll see a quality store, expand the one in Justin. So see what we've done in Denton, Justin.
So will some of the parking lot lights also go out with the sign light? My concern is the residents that are around there. We live 2 houses over, and with the big sign, it's the sun 24/7.
With the, probably yes and no. We do need some security. We have things that people like to do, all kind of crazy things to get in. We'll have some storage area, like we talked about earlier. It's got a fence all around it, but we will have some security. Alan Walters. The pole sign, any lights on that, and the pole sign. Yes, that goes on. The wall packs, they typically stay down in the back, so they're calculated. We did retrofit the light on that light, so that it wasn't constantly clear. There's nobody right there on us, but we can do something like that. And again, just because that, other than the islands, it's not designed yet, but I don't foresee any big parking lot like that out for the storage area that Tom mentioned. It's kind of tucked back and really sort of hidden by that all those existing trees and the creek corridor. So I would say the security lighting is needed to those items kind of far from the road.
On the subject of the sign, when it comes right down to it with our city council, they'll want to know facts like square footage of the lit area of the sign, those kinds of things. So they know exactly what they're doing. And not necessarily for us right here, right now, but the height is one thing, but it's also the square footage of the size of the sign.
And there's what we'll most likely do is include a drawing, rendering of the sign. There's one that was already.
It's already been submitted. I just missed it in the packet.
Those are really great questions, and we're willing to work with the city. Certainly want to be good neighbors to the residents.
Well, we appreciate that fact because we are needing stores like that in this town. And now's a good time, like you say, to get in. And I don't know a guy in the world that doesn't like to go to an Ace Hardware.
Well,
Not just guys.
I know guys better than girls, so.
and what we've seen before in many instances happened in Justin is that once Ace Hardware goes in, we hope for our sake and for the city's sake that be a catalyst.
Just as a note, I do know that that particular whole stretch of BC Rome is a commercially zoned area.
That is correct. So as residential vacates that area, it's not going to go back to residential. It would turn into a commercial corridor through there or retail.
And yes, no, we already answered the question on TxDOT owns that.
Yes.
Any other question? Now's the time.
Apologize for being late.
I'll start over if you like.
No, I apologize. But where is it going to be at? Where's the Ace Hardware going in at? Right here.
It's the gray metal building that's been there
Okay.
forever with the sticks out front.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Know that anybody knows exactly what they did in there.
Oh, I do. That was a milling business, and it was called Just Milling Around, and they made molding. That's why you saw all the long, skinny sticks that would pile up out front.
I thought they were just waiting for a big bonfire.
I wondered myself for many years.
Kathy? Roland?
No, after hearing the explanation and stuff, I'm good.
Joseph?
No, I'm excited as well. Save me. I can walk to your store. Like I said, my only concern is just going to be the lighting around the residence, but that's an issue I think you guys are on top of.
Yeah, I will say myself that in this town, the sign and the perhaps the paved concrete, but I understand it is going to be paved concrete as you concrete more parking space, not asphalt. Yeah, I don't see great problems here. Very nice to come in and have you actually explain it to us, though. With no other questions, any more questions of city staff?
So this evening, one of the things that we need to be mindful of is this is set for a public hearing, and we did not have anyone speak to such. It does say discussion and necessary action regarding a replat, but I think they're really just looking to get the feedback on the variances so they can go ahead and close on the property. We can't legally change or replat it until they are the actual owners.
So this is really not a non-action then.
What I would ask the commission to do is table this to a date certain so that they can proceed with, because we've already advertised. So if you're willing to schedule this to your next meeting, we would say we're tabling this to a date certain and give the notification so we don't have to repost.
Should we do that with a motion in a second or, okay. I'll make that motion that we continue this agenda item to our next regularly scheduled P Z meeting in March.
I'll second that.
Go ahead. Yeah. So because you are not the legal owner of the property, if she had been here with you this evening and had made that application herself, that's a different story. The problem comes in with you all as applicants and non-owners. If they grant it and it goes on through to city council, then that attaches to that property. And if you all don't close and the owner didn't want it, we don't have any way to balance that out. So I apologize if that wasn't clear, but it's a little bit of a gray area when you're trying to kind of thread the needle on something like this. But I do think you can move forward with a good amount of confidence that P&Z does not have any questions to that effect. I don't know what council will say, but generally this is a recommending body, and I think they'd all be excited to have you here in this community. So on the 22nd, I think I can explain it for you. If we need to do that, I can at least give them some background on what that might look like so that you all can, when do you expect to close? Do you know? Oh, okay. That's good. Okay. Well, then I'm assuming then by the time we come back, what date is that in March, Shane? Yes. And then all of that should kind of be in line and we can go ahead and push it on through. We will also need to talk about a developers agreement as we go through this so that we can have all this memorialized in a document between the city and between you all once you've closed.
All right, well, I'll make my motion to readdress this on our March 4th, 2024 regularly scheduled Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for further action. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Second with Kathy. We'll go down the line again. Myself, aye. Roland?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
Joseph?
Aye.
And Christie.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen. Discussion and any necessary action regarding the minutes dated November 6, 2023. That was last November. Does everyone remember that? I don't think it was too much of a meeting of that, though. Okay, got it. Then I'll make a motion that we approve those minutes.
Second.
Second. Steve Knight, yes. Roland?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Joseph?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Future agenda items, anyone? Something you'd like to see or talk about?
One thing that I would like to bring to your attention that as we get things better situated with council, I would like to see this commission go through some training, for lack of a better word. I mean, not like in-depth educational college training, but what it means to be a P&Z member and what kind of things you will consider and some terminology. And so I can work with our city attorney to see if they have some prepared information. If not, I can pull some together just so you understand the concepts surrounding zoning and platting and all of those things. Some of you who've been on here for a while might already know that, but a good refresher is always helpful.
Yeah, Mr. Carvin did bring us some stuff. That's where I got this book, and it was very informative and something to rely on. I think Roland's the only other one here that's gone through that. So yes, it is good stuff. So what, but at your convenience when you can schedule that, so it's fine with us. Okay, with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Steve, yes. Roland?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Joseph?
Yes.
And Christie?
Yes.
This meeting is over at 6:34. Thank you very much.